with today's topic then. Today's topic is, as you know, the 4 types of ancestral wisdom and how we can harness them. And when I talk about ancestral wisdom, I obviously talk about wisdom that we inherit from our ancestors. Both from our female and our male lineages, we're always hearing in places about how we inherit some not so nice things, trauma, disease, repetitive negative patterns or toxic patterns. And we know that it is in fact the case that sometimes we're entangled with an ancestor and we bring about this pattern that has, caused us some issues or has been difficult for us. And the reason why we do this is because it needs to be brought to light so that it can be solved. And it usually is solved by bringing back that which was separated before. So under the systemic view, disease and any issues such as bankruptcy, problems in relationships, not just physical health, mental health as well. There's always a link to our ancestors. But we also inherit positive things from our ancestors, although the majority of the press is focused on the negative stuff. There's also positive things that we inherit both from our male and our female lineages. It does not matter whether we met them or not. This wisdom, same as the other stuff, travels through the lineage, and we're able to harness it, to take it. First of all, we need to be aware of it. And second of all, we need to take it. How do we take it? Will we take it when we stand as adults and when we acknowledge those who may have been excluded or ignored for any reason whatsoever? Today, I would like to start the topic of the good inheritance or the positive inheritance, if you want, by discussing the 4 types of wisdom that we can inherit from our ancestors. And in order to work with that, I'm going to use the tarot cards, which we'll then use in the exercise afterwards to get yourself tested and see which one of these 4 wisdoms is the one that is the most relevant for you at this moment. With systemic work, it's very important that you remember that some of the information you get from our exercises is actually information that is relevant for that here and now. You can watch this video again later and test yourself again and see whether, say for instance, in a month, and see whether anything has changed. You may find that you get the same result as you're going to get tonight or in this session, or something different. There is no right or wrong reason, but it's good to keep checking ourselves because things may change as we change. And so then we can use this information to make life easier for ourselves. So let's talk about what wisdom is first, because there is a lot of understandings of what wisdom may entail. And wisdom, in short, is our inner wisdom, our inner certainty, our inner peace. It's something that is truly ourselves. And also we talk about wisdom when we, as adults, are able to distinguish, for instance, between right and wrong. That is being wise. Also, we talk about wisdom when we talk about an instance where you have acquired information of any kind, and then you have applied that information into your life, into your personal life or your professional life, or both. And you have integrated the information by applying it in a different way, in a more personal way, and a more rich way, because you're applying it to your own context. That becomes then wisdom. So we can have knowledge and experience, but when they come together, this is called wisdom. And as I said before, how can I harness and take this wisdom, which belongs to me rightfully as a member of my lineage? The way to do it is by realizing what type of wisdom I need and whether it comes from my male or my female lineage, and then stand in my adult self rather than on my injured inner child and apply it. And for this, I will give you some healing phrases which will help you connect with that wisdom and break the pattern of disconnection or lack of awareness. A lot of us don't really know what kind of wisdom we need. So that's why we're here tonight, to work on this. So first, I would like to tell you there's 4 types of wisdom. 2 of them are related to our female lineage, and 2 of them are related to our male lineage. And I'm going to talk first about this card, and I'm going to talk about this card in terms of emotional wisdom. Emotional wisdom comes from our female lineage, and what it means is, when I'm emotionally wise, what it means is that I can separate between what I feel and what someone else is feeling. This may sound very simple, but sometimes it's a little bit more complicated than that, because from birth, even before birth, when we're in our mother's womb, we tend as babies to take on the feelings of the mom, the emotions of the mom. And we do this because our relationship with mom in the womb is very symbiotic, is very, very close. So we have learned from very early on that mimicking or taking on somebody else's emotions, in the very least, helps us survive. So later on in life, as adult, young or older adults, it may come very naturally to do the same and to take on emotions that are actually not mine. I don't know whether you see yourself in this, in some way or form, how you think you may feel dismayed about something happening in your neighborhood, in your family, how you disagree with something. And when you look deep down into this emotion, you may realize that this emotion of rejection or dismay, it's not actually yours, it's not your emotion, but it actually comes from your auntie or from your mom or from someone who is actually the source of this emotion. And you as a child, you just take it on. When do we not want to inherit and express those wisdoms? When they're not the right wisdom for us, when we are getting sick or depressed or exhausted, by adopting these emotions that are not mine. Our path in life is about expressing our true self rather than someone else. So the point is trying to then tease apart which of these things are actually mine and which are not, and then walk the path of my own choices, in this case, my own emotional wisdom. So That was emotional wisdom. The second female wisdom, or second wisdom associated with our female ancestors, is the gold coins card. And this is to do with our physical wisdom. You can imagine that it's a feminine wisdom from our female lineage, because women traditionally and historically are a little bit more complex beings in terms of our physical attributes, our cycles, our lives, all our features, which means that traditionally we have had to be more in touch with our physical selves. So that makes sense then, that it should be a female wisdom type. When I'm talking about physical or body wisdom, I'm talking about discerning what is it that my body needs, as opposed to somebody else telling me what my body needs, or me adopting somebody else's practice because that person's practice is good for their bodies, but maybe not for mine. So the typical situation where perhaps, just an example, my mom is a meat eater or a vegetarian, and she raises me as a meat eater or as a vegetarian, but deep down, it doesn't feel right to me, whatever of the two choices that was. And eventually, as I become an adult, I realize that I'm actually not a meat eater. Deep down, I'm a vegetarian, or the other way around. This is important because we need to know. We need to know what is it that our body actually needs in every single step of life. And we know as well that our needs change. But so is physical wisdom discerning which is what things my body is asking for, as opposed to somebody else, or somebody else telling you what they think is good for you. You should be having more of this, you should be having some of that. And we can listen to people, but then we need to really work out what our inner wisdom tells us. So we're going to go now with the two male wisdoms, the two types of wisdoms that we inherit from our male lineage. And I'm going to start with the swords. And the swords card relates to intellectual wisdom. This is a perhaps more traditional thing we think about when we think about wisdom, things that we hold in our mind, in our intellect. Obviously, is about being able to separate what I think about something as opposed to what somebody else thinks about it, and I adopt this belief or this way of thinking. Sometimes it's difficult to uphold our intellectual wisdom, especially when it comes to being in conflict or coming up against the wisdom of somebody who is in a figure of authority, right? So we've had people, our teachers or somebody else that is in a perceived or in a real situation where they're an authority on something, and we express something different to what they present. And we are challenged because who are we, right? Who are we to challenge the teacher or the guru or the spiritual leader intellectual proposal? The reality is that we know deep down that sometimes we agree with some of these teachers, sometimes we don't. But we must gather the strength to stand in our own intellectual wisdom. And that's a path that we need to learn how to walk as we grow older and wiser, obviously. So this comes from our male lineage, and That was your intellectual wisdom. The fourth and final type of wisdom is the second wisdom associated with our male lineage. And it's summarized in this card. This card, we're talking about your visceral wisdom, the wisdom from your gut. Some people call it your instinct. This type of wisdom is also very important because it's what allows us to make decisions based on what our true self and our true inner wise person, wise woman, wise man. And it's very important that decisions we make are true to ourselves, to our truest part of ourselves. It's very, very common in life, unfortunately, that we disconnect from this wisdom often, perhaps due to pressure from others that impose their beliefs on us, their decisions on us. We let other people decide for us. But it's also relevant when we sacrifice our own gut feeling, our own gut wisdom, maybe to fit into a group, into a society, into a job, because you know that if you don't make yourself fit by sacrificing your gut wisdom, you will be excluded from that group. So it's not just somebody else imposing their gut wisdom onto us and us accepting it, but it also may be the case where we consciously or unconsciously may sacrifice this wisdom of my gut is screaming at me because I want to belong somewhere. So we've got your 4 wisdom types, 2 of them associated to your female lineage, 2 of them associated with your male lineage. And the exercise we're going to do today is try to work out which of these wisdoms is the one that you require the most for the context and the situation that you're going through at every level in your life at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm mixing these cards that I've shown you earlier, and you're going to choose one of them. So I've got the 4 cards here, and I'm going to number them for you so that you can choose one of them to work with each one of them in turn. So this will be card number 1. This is card number 2, card number 3, and card number 4. You don't need to think about it too much. Just choose whether you want card 1, 2, 3, or 4. And I will now start telling you which one is the wisdom type you need the most at the moment. And I will give you a healing phrase. A healing phrase is a phrase that moves the soul. It's a phrase that is going to take your insight into the solution of this, the answer to the question. It's going to give you a vision. And that's all very well. You get to choose, and you will soon find out which type of wisdom is the one you need the most at the moment. That's great. That's an insight. But the insight is only as good as you take it into action. Sometimes having the insight is fantastic, and there are some changes that take place just from the awareness of the insight itself. But if you want to go deeper into grounding the insight into yourself, into your life, into your bodies, then you need to do something about it. And this is where the healing phrases come. A healing phrase is a phrase that is going to help me take the insight further. And by repeating this healing phrase at least once a day during 7 days, I'm going to slowly but surely start to transform and become more and more aware of this insight that I'm going to get, so that by repetition, I don't just move on and forget about this, but I actually keep on reminding myself that this is the case or that is the case. It will make more sense when I start talking about them and giving you a healing phrase for each one of them. So again, I'm going to mix this. You'd had already chosen one, but by mistake, I blended them again. So I'm just going to blend it again once more. And this will be the position for number 1, card number 2, card number 3, card number 4. Which one is it that you want? I'm going to start with this one. This is your card number 1. And this was the card, if you remember, it was the card where we talked about the visceral wisdom, the gut wisdom. This is the, if you chose this card number 1, this is the wisdom you need the most. And how do we integrate? Remember, we talked about how we sometimes let other people decide for us, or we sacrifice our own decision to fit into a situation or a place. So your healing phrase, if you chose this card, is, and you can write this down, I remain with my decisions, and you remain with your decisions. What does this mean? At this moment, you may already think, if you chose this letter, this card, you may already think of examples where your gut wisdom has been challenged, or where you have yourself sacrificed your gut wisdom. And you can maybe visualize or imagine somebody in your family, somebody in your very close environment that is helping you sacrifice your gut wisdom, or is imposing their own gut wisdom on you, and you are accepting it. Maybe it's something recent, maybe something chronic, maybe something from when you were a child. So you're going to visualize that person or those people, and you're going to say this healing phrase for the next 7 days, at least once a day, to bring them into your awareness in a little super short meditation. Visualize them coming to you, and you will say to them, I stay with my decisions, and you stay with your decisions. So that was the first card. And we're going to go with the second card, which is your emotional. Remember, we talked about your emotional wisdom. My feelings as opposed to somebody else's feelings, my truest feelings. Once again, if you chose this card, this is the wisdom that you require the most at the moment. But at the same time, you may already can be able to think about someone or somebody's, different people, who whose emotional wisdom you've adopted, even though it may be going against yours. So you visualize them, one person or more, in front of you. And for the next 7 days, as you visualize them in front of you, you're going to say the healing phrase, I stay with my emotions, and you stay with yours. And breathe it and see how that feels. Very good. Then we got the third card, and the third card is the gold coins. Remember, we talked about the physical wisdom. What does my body need? What does my body need? As opposed to somebody telling me what my body needs, or as opposed to me adopting somebody else's wisdom about what bodies need, including mine, which may not be the case for me, which may actually not ring true for me. To think of those people or person who has tried to impose their own body wisdom on you since you were a child or recently or chronically, and bring them to your awareness, bring them to your inner eye. And once they're in front of you, you're going to say the healing phrase to them. I remain with my needs, and you remain with your needs. And breathe it. Feel it in your body. And see how that feels. The last card is the sword. And this card, remember, is to do with intellectual wisdom. How we sometimes allow people in positions of authority, for example, to demean or challenge our own intellectual wisdom when it's against what they think. I think you can very easily, if you chose this card, think of someone or some people who have historically or chronically or frequently hugged you, sacrifice your own intellectual wisdom so that you adopt theirs, or whether you have sacrificed your own intellectual wisdom to fit into a job, a relationship, a friendship, a group of people. So once more, you're going to bring those people or person into your mind's eye. And for the next 7 days, you're going to say the healing phrase, I remain with my wisdom, and you remain with yours. Try to apply this treatment of healing phrases. You can do it at least once a day. You can use the mirror to strengthen these healing phrases. If you're working with a male wisdom or with a female wisdom, you can strengthen your healing phrases by saying them in front of the mirror. If you say them in front of the mirror and they are male phrases, male wisdoms, then you're going to look at your right eye when you say the phrase. If you chose one of the female wisdom types, when you say your healing phrase in front of the mirror, you're going to look at your left eye as you say the phrase. If you are left-handed, you're going to do the opposite, okay? So then if you're left-handed, the male is your left eye, and the healing phrases for the female wisdoms is on the right eye. Finally, some of you may say, well, I chose, I don't know, physical wisdom, but in fact, I feel like all of them apply to me. So what do I do then? We're going to work with what you and your soul has chosen as the most important wisdom type at this moment. So yes, we all see ourselves in every wisdom. We all feel, but I really need some physical wisdom, but I really need, and yet I chose, intellectual wisdom, whatever. That's very, very common. We all feel connected to each of the choices more than others. But the one you chose tonight is the one that applies for you, that your soul requires more than you think. You can always work with the 4 of them, but do not do this at the same time. My suggestion is go with what your card said, your choice was, give it 7 days, and then test again. See whether you still choose the same card or some other card comes through, and you can change to a different type of wisdom. Remember, this is important because our healing phrases will take the insight, the new information, and you'll be able to integrate it and therefore transform something which is urgent at the moment in yourself by these healing phrases. So I hope this is of help, and I look forward to working with you with some other aspects of your family tree, your family history, and the tarot cards. So thank you very much.